A man comes to your door. He rings the bell. You open up the door, and the man says, "Hey, I'm here to sell you something." Well, you immediately want to close the door. You don't want to get sold something stupid. So, the man is trying to convince you that you should definitely listen to him. But the moment you listen to him is the moment you lose. Because that's when you decide to waste your time on him. Now, a lot of people say that communism hasn't been tried yet. Now, that's not true, obviously. Look at Cuba, look at Mugabe, look at Berlin, look at all these places and people in history that have tried communism and became totalitarian. And some people might say totalitarian does not mean communist, but that's not entirely true either. Even democracies can become totalitarian, and I know that seems like that's not true. When you think about it, it can. A good example of this is Russia. Forced mental cohesion. Let's argue that, sure, communism has never been tried. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. What would a salesperson say, trying to sell us communism? They would say, "You see your neighbor on the other side of the street, how they have a big villa. You see your neighbor on the other side of the street, how they have food on the table and you're struggling." And they say, "Wouldn't you want to have that too?" Okay, so a bunch of people are being sold communism. Do you buy it? Well, let's see. If you say you want what the person on the other side of the street has, then you understand that that's a finite amount of resources. If there's a finite amount of resources, then you understand that the value of a resource is defined by what someone thinks they need. Do you need a villa? Do you need it? Or is it greed? That's capitalism, right? And that's what they say. They say capitalism is greed, and therefore it must be the epitome of evil, because it's a sin. Besides its religious connotations, that's also the fact, of course, that greed does indeed corrupt. And greed can make people treat others badly. But here's the thing that you may not be taking into account in this calculation. If there truly are finite resources, what about the things that you have? Let's say that you start with just stuff. How long before someone on the other side of the street is missing a kidney and has one kidney that barely works? Do you then have to forcibly give your kidney too? Now, I know this may sound extreme, and a lot of communists may say that that's never going to happen. But that's not how it works. Because you can't do it like that. You can't do something halfway. Because if you did, then who gets to decide which limit? And if you can't decide for everyone what the limit is in that scenario, because there's no incentive, then there can be no equality, nor even equity. There can be no equal opportunity, not according to anyone's need. So now imagine the salesperson has sold to everyone communism. And they sold not just communism itself, but a new pipeline of communism. So water gets carried to your house. Better water, he says. Well, this is what happens. If that water is a resource, then it's going to eventually run out. Because much like that villa, there are a finite amount of villas, and there's a finite amount of drinkable water at any given point in a society that's developed. So then the question becomes, if you're trying to equalize everything, is there going to be enough for everyone? And you might say, yes, there is. But no. No. Don't be fooled. Because as the consumption increases over time due to the growth of a population, the resources become scarcer. Exponential growth means exponential need for resources. So now we're facing two problems with this proposition. Two problems with the communist proposition. One, where are you going to get the water from? Because eventually even the rich ones are going to run out of it. And then how will you equalize that? Because if you do truly make it equal, then no one will have enough in the end. Alright, so you say. How about you limit the population? Or how does capitalism fix this? Well, capitalism gives incentive. Capitalism gives the incentive for people to invent. All inventions for drinkable water came from countries that were capitalist or totalitarian. None of them were communist. And you know why? Because they did not have the incentive. And the second problem you're facing with this proposition, besides who gets the water, which I mentioned before, like, are you going to stop the population from growing? No, you can't. They would never accept that. And that brings us to the second problem. If you think you can do better in charge of everyone, then how will you not become corrupt? How can you be certain that you get the right to distribute something, and when finally the resources do run out because of the growth, are you certain you won't be saving your own life first? The people in charge in communism will always become corrupt because of this reason. Because the entire mentality of this equality thing does not work. Empires work. Democracies don't work necessarily, but at least they're closer to it. Totalitarian states, they work, but usually not for long, because it's hard to sustain a lie. And totalitarians are usually fascists, and they basically build their entire empire on lies. They build their empires on control. And that's the key issue here. If you control the resources, or if you control your people, then you will lose both. The only thing you can control are your actions. Your respect. Are you going to let people have incentives, or are you just going to force everything down someone's throat? If people do not want to drink communism, then take your sales elsewhere. Or get a new job. Sell something that people actually need. Instead of telling people that they should get new water sources, or telling people they should get new villas. Why don't you organize something more useful? Why don't you organize a collaboration? You know, because what if the person you're selling to is actually an engineer? And then the other person on the other side of the street is a businessman. He can fund the ideas of the engineer, and together you can make a better solution for resource shortages. This is why capitalism will always stump high up above communism. Thank you all for watching. All hail to the rebel.